Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome to a slightly different edition of Planet Coaster with a Fraggle, and I thought I would just kind of show off a little bit. Okay, as some of you may or may not have seen, this is Cutter's Creek. Is it? Yes. Sorry. Yeah, this is Cutter's Creek. This is actually a challenge park that I created. Well, I mean, I took the existing Deciduous challenge park and edited it heavily. Well, not heavily, but I edited it. I added in this waterfall and the streams and trees, and basically took the standard boring challenge park and pepped it up a little. This one is medium mode challenge park. So, you know, there's that. Then, of course, if you don't want to play in the Deciduous park, there's always the desert. And this is another one I threw together. This one's affectionately called Table Rock. This is another medium challenge. There's the entrance there. We start down here. There's like a broken bridge over here. We've got this nice gap with a little river in the bottom. So we can get down there. There we go. Pretty nice. Some debris and some rocks around and stuff. We've got this big old table of rock here, and the locals seem to have this strange notion that many years ago the aliens used to land on the top and perform strange sacrifices. Nerds, I hear. And you know, you've got this guy here, and there's another little rock over here, but I didn't want to make it too bad. I was trying to keep in mind that these are medium, so I didn't want to go too bonkers with the terrain editing. And the other problem with these is, of course, you can only edit up to the edge of the park boundary. So I had to get kind of creative with the whole, you know, wear through the rock thingy. I was trying to pretend like maybe there was a river that had come down between these 2 points and started carving out this this terrain here. It goes all the way across to the other side where it kind of disappears again. Or maybe there was an earthquake. Who knows? And then, of course, we've got the tropical park as well, and you may already notice a little change here. There's some water around here now. I noticed last time I opened this, that water was missing. It like had dried up or something. I don't know. But it wasn't there last time I opened this, and then when I opened it before, it had returned after my changes. Again, this is a challenge park. You start with 4,000, well, 3,900, well, we'll just call it 4,000. And, you know, I didn't want to do too much, because this one actually has, where's the boundary? There we are. This one actually has some, you know, interesting terrain already, you know, well, mostly. So I thought, you know, I would just do like a silly little thing. Just drop some water in a couple of islands and an interesting little feature. Nobody knows who carved this head or where it came from, but it does look like somebody managed to get themselves stranded researching it. So yeah, this is a little one I did for the tropical climate, if the desert climate is not your thing. And then, of course, if you're a fan of singing at the top of hills, there's always the Alpine park. This one's still, I find it still a little disappointing that I'm surrounded by these like gigantic mountains with snow on them, and I can't do snow in my park. I'm sure that may or may not change later on down the road. The game is relatively new, so who knows. Anyway, I just thought I would develop out over here a little bit, drop down this really cool looking waterfall, put in this rock here, this hill. Maybe there was some kind of a, I don't know. I don't know why there would be a naked hill with no trees, but there is. And then, of course, there's this hill here that is covered in pine needles, which is why it's got strange color. And, you know, I'm not quite sure why it would look like that. Maybe there's some gold under there. Maybe the rock is a different type of rock under there. It's, you know, who knows why it would be a different color. But this one I didn't really want to change too much. Mostly because this one's actually a pretty difficult one to deal with. With the lake with the water on one side and then on the other, but you've got this thin line here where you can't make any changes. It kind of limits you a little bit, especially since you are on you know, this what essentially was a tabletop before I got my hands on it. And I made these changes to it. So there you go. This one a little easier to deal with than the others, I think. And then of course there's always the grasslands. And the grasslands always kind of reminded me of like the African plains, you know? But they were just so dull and lifelike. Dull and lifeless. So, bearing that in mind, I thought I would just kind of pep it up a little bit. So I made this big old hole over here. I made it really deep, and then I put some water in the bottom, and then I realized that, you know, couldn't really see it. So I filled it up. And then I made this. I did this big old, nice little waterfall which falls into this crack in the ground, and this kind of goes around. As you can tell, I kind of have a fondness for these kind of things. Well, I just think it's really cool because it means we can build bridges across it, and I think the bridges for the steam train would look really cool going across there. Anyway, whatever. That's my personal opinion, and it's an opinion, so it doesn't mean anything to anyone but me. Yep, this one goes all the way over. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, well, you know, it's really flat and boring, but it's the grasslands. They would be kind of like pretty flat and boring. And then I thought, well, what about introducing, or rather, well, this was more of an experiment than anything else. I was like, well, I'm going to have a play and see what I can do with the terrain tools. And I ended up with this rather interesting looking feature. I don't know quite how it would have been created. I mean, presumably at some point there was a maybe a limestone rock here or something, and over the years the rain has just pummeled it, and it's, you know, slowly been eroded. I think it looks quite nice, and as a test it came up pretty good, so I just left it there. Anyway, this one is the cenote. I think it's not too terrible. It was more interesting than the default Grasslands one, let's put it that way. So then I started thinking about doing the hard mode. You know, the medium is okay. You start with 5,000 or 4,000 depending. And you start with a lot of technology, or a lot of the rides and stuff are already unlocked. And, you know, they're pretty easy. And then I thought, well, you know, for a challenge, why not step things up a little bit? So I thought, you know, I'd open the one of the hard mode parks and edit that one. So I did, and here it is. This is the Grasslands again, in hard, and I have, you know, hit the ground with the noise tool just to give it some undulations and whatnot. But again, you know, it's the Grasslands. I didn't want to go too berserk. I wanted to try and keep like a transition into the default scenery, he says, and then pans around to this monstrosity right here. Well, this is why it's called Erosion Point. At some point in history, there may have been a lake here, and the rains have washed away. See, this is what happens when I get better at doing that. The rains have washed away these hills down into this lake here, and in the fall, during the rainy season, this lake fills up and it runs down through these caves and out into this canyon here. And this canyon fills up, and all the local animals come by and they drink from this, and eventually it all drops back down again, so we end up with this nastiness in the summer, this stagnant dirty water sitting here in these empty, inviting caves. And then lastly, this is the last one I did. I actually finished this one today. Needle Nose Park. Don't ask. I don't know why Needle Nose came to mind, but it did. So, what we have here, we have the Alpine Park, and I have gone a little bit bonkers with it. This is hard mode, so you start with 2000. And you might notice that in the previous one I started it with 4. I should probably adjust that. I'll probably adjust that, actually. Yep, this one you start with 2, and you start with limited rides. And yeah, this is the terrain you get to deal with. Nice. Big man-made lake. I'm going to say man-made because over here, there's the dam. The owner of the property wanted a lakeside castle, so he had a dam built. It seemed easier than just moving his castle brick by brick over here. But this is what you have to play with. This is in hard mode, so yep, bear that in mind. You got lots and lots of water, very little flat terrain, and lots of trees. I'm going to do some more of these, but I got to figure out what I'm going to do with them, unless somebody comes up with some ideas. I thought I would share all this nonsense with you. So, there you have it. I'll put the links to these in the description, I guess. Anyway, so until next time, I will see you anon.